And the essence of this particular media chat wasn't to be a world press conference. It has to do with some response to one or two media write-ups that were brought to my attention. So what I'm going to do is to give you some documents to read. Just give you like 2 minutes, 3 minutes to read, and then I will speak on them. So can you just do so? 2.5 months ago, one morning, my wife Regina forwarded something to me. I looked at it, I opened it, I said, where is it from? I went through it. Tell me where you're going through it now. And she said to me she got it from a company director. The owner of that company is a guy called Wale. This company is a fairly big company. They're called Sapphire. Sapphire are perfume makers. You probably know about them. Regina happens to be one of the brand ambassadors for Sapphire, the perfume company. So I asked to speak with the man who forwarded it to her. And I spoke with him, and he told me he got it. This thing was sent to him by a gentleman who was in prison at the time. Who was in prison at the time. And so it began to make sense. Of course, when I read it, I knew some of the characters mentioned in the message. But it's a very serious matter. I mean, when somebody's life is at stake, it is more important than anything else. So the first thing I did was to report to the CP, report to the IG, and report to the DSS. They took up the matter. They went to prison. They interviewed the two people who were conspiring to kill. They also invited the gentleman who was named there as their financier. Later on, of course, if you read through there, they just described him as the owner of filling stations. Of course, in my place, there's only one owner of filling stations. But when the guy who overheard the discussions came out from prison, I also met with him. He gave further statements to the police and to DSS. But beyond that, he also began to express fear that those people were threatening him for leaking the information to kill me. The police tried to encourage this. He made further statements to DSS, to CP's office, and to the IG's office. Part of the statement he made also was that he was receiving threats for leaking this information. For me, I wouldn't have called this press conference, but for two reasons. One, and perhaps even more importantly, is that the person mentioned in the documents and the further statements, Gabriel Obeche, the owner of Rain Oil, began to say that I concocted the story. You know, I have no reason to make up such a story. So I wanted to deal with the issue of credibility I have no reason to make up a story about somebody who is in prison. But secondly, and much more importantly, is that the guy who informed us on this plot, just as he feared for his life, he died 3 weeks ago. He died 3 weeks ago, so much so that even the mother and siblings have refused now to, they were meant to be at this press conference. The gentleman at Sapphire Perfumes, Wale, was also meant to be here, but he said he's also scared for his life because the way and manner that the gentleman died is still a mystery and suspicious. We just felt at some point that having gone to the police would have been enough. At least once they were told that the plan has leaked, that might encourage them to abort whatever they wanted to do, but it didn't seem to have worked. So I just thought that I should talk to you about this, and of course we can talk about the country or other issues that you might want to talk about. I know one or two of you here want to talk about Paris Club reforms and all that. You read about it. But investigations are ongoing on the plot to assassinate and on the death of this young man. His name is O.C. Bosa. O.C. Bosa is not your typical prisoner. Apparently, from what I understand, he had some disagreements with just some domestic issue. And so he found himself with the police, and from the police to court. He was granted bail. But he didn't have a surety to bail him. So he ended up in a Kuje prison. So whilst in prison, he overheard these discussions. He only spent 3 weeks in prison. The guys who were plotting to kill in prison, they are still in prison. So I just thought I should bring this to the attention of the media for reasons that I've told you already. But it doesn't, just because you have disagreements over one or two things, doesn't mean that you should plot to kill anybody. You don't kill anybody. You have no right to anybody's life.